Anybody have questions before I start? Okay, cool. Yeah. Mullet. He asked, what kind of haircut am I going to do? I'm going to do a mullet. He's still growing out his mullet, so I don't want to change that for him. Plus, he works at my shop, so I'm going to see him a lot, so I have to do what he wants. Make sense? Cool. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and comb the hair where he wears it. He's got a little bit of a part to one side. We got a lot of sauce and salad through the back. I have noticed, and he has mentioned, his hair feels a little bit heavy and flat in the back. I do want to add texture back here, and I want to give it some movement. I come from the traditional background of hair. I believe in the traditional background of hair. Doesn't mean that's the only thing I do, but there are certain values of traditional hair that I still maintain, and that will apply here in mullets. I believe that hair should have movement. In the mullet style that we're seeing now, everything will be moving backwards for the most part. You're going to see this movement going backward. That's what I want to maintain, that's what I want to keep for. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten up this color line right here. See how we have this heavy line of color? When you're working with somebody that dyes their hair, you do have to fight this natural line of demarcation. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come through this parietal ridge with a square layer. Start my shears, I'm going to come straight up with a square layer. Building up the corner. Whenever you build weight, what happens somewhere else? If you build weight in one place and you take it away from another. Does that make sense? Anywhere you take away, stop it. What up, dude? My boys, how are you? I'll tell a story in a second. I'm so happy you're here, bro. Whenever you take away hair in one place, you're putting it somewhere else, okay? It doesn't have an escape route. So wherever I'm taking it away, I have to be conscious of where am I putting it. As I take away this hair right below the parietal ridge, that means that I am actually building the weight above the parietal ridge. So this square layer, as you see, I base my hand on his head. The reason I do this is because it's consistent. No matter where I go, no matter where I turn him, my hand stays consistent. That allows me to keep balance, okay? So as I'm basing my head on his head, I'm keeping the symmetry and the balance. So now that I've taken this hair away under the parietal ridge, the way to find it is to elevate the next section above. See this corner we've built up? It's kind of hard to see, but there's this little corner that now builds up. I've taken the hair away under, and I've replaced it above. So now I'm going to come through diagonally, and I'm going to chip that corner. The reason I'm going to point cut is because I want to break it. I don't want to blunt cut it. So now we're shaping this into a shattered movement along this parietal ridge. So now it starts to lighten where that line was. It's not a heavy broad line sitting. A lot of times when we cut blunt, we have a big line. Shattering that will be point cutting. That decides to diffuse the line. Now as I raise, we have more weight that travels up. I'm going to continue to point cut with that weight up because I do not want a blunt line across the top of his head. Does that make sense so far? Yeah? How many of us are very comfortable with shear cutting? Good. If you did not put your hand up, please, please, please believe me when I tell you this. If you want to make money and you want to gain trust, get very comfortable with shear cutting. Don't have specialties. There are so many people that believe in being a specialized barber. I want to be a lucrative barber. Always, big brother. I can tell a lot of stories about that guy, but I'm not going to worry. So now that we're diffusing through the top, I'm taking my shears and I'm basing it on my bottom finger here. The reason I want to put my shears on my bottom finger is that if I were to hover and point cut, I'm going to bleed on him. I'm going to cut myself. I like safety and security. By basing my shears here and keeping them at a bit of an angle forward, I'm in no danger of cutting my own finger. This also gives stability to my cuts because I have a baseline. Does that make sense? This is a technique you can do at home. You're holding the hair like this. You're going to place the bottom finger and you can walk it. The whole time you just sit there in front of your TV, walking the blade back and forth. That's something that's going to allow you to keep even balance and symmetry all the way through. What's up, John? So you always want to texturize? No. You don't want to always do the same thing no matter what because every style is different Every client is different, every hair texture is different. For the style that he has, which is going to be looser and it's color-treated hair, I don't want to cut blunt because on this finer texture, color-treated hair, you will see lines stacking. What we're going to do to start creating our movement. I'm taking vertical sections because I want to reduce weight. Okay? Since we're student-based, I am going to share this because I don't think enough people care about this anymore. Horizontal sections build shape. Horizontal builds shape. Vertical reduces weight. Okay? So if you want to take weight off of the ply, you're taking vertical sections. You want to build that shape, you're taking horizontal sections. So that the cross section is diagonal. When you go diagonal, you're able to build shape while reducing weight. That's how you can create the head shape. Does everybody know what that means when you're working with or against head shape? Convex layers go anti-head shape, concave layers go with head shape. Yeah? Make sense? Kind of. I'm going to take more of a concave, anti-head shape section going vertical. I'm lifting and elevating as I walk through the top. The reason I'm doing this is I want to create a little bit of movement. And I'm still basing my bottom blade on my finger, walking up as to not bleed on my client because I don't want to cut myself. I've cut myself on stage so many times, I want you guys to understand this. When you see people on stage, no one's perfect, right? I hacked my finger main stage premiere Orlando a lot of years ago. To the point where I was cutting and I went, whoop, and there was a piece of skin on my scissor. And I now could not bend my finger for a second, because the second I bend it, it's going to start gushing. I'm standing there with a microphone, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's great, Patty, I appreciate it. And I turn around and I look to my assistant who's on stage, I need you to grab me a neck strip ASAP. As if no one's looking, and I'm still just standing there like, I turn around and I wrap a neck strip around my finger so tight that halfway through there's a big red circle in the middle of it. So understand that if you cut yourself, so do I. It's the same thing. No one's ever going to outgrow it. So now I try to put these safety measures in place. Alright, still taking this vertical, walking it up, creating our texture and our movement. And he has this heaviness right above his occipital. So above the occipital is what I really want to focus on. Everybody knows the head shape. Do we know where the occipital bone is? Yes? That one right there in the middle? Good. I know that a lot of times in school you'll sit there and think, when am I going to use this? I promise you, you need to use it all the time. Has anybody ever done a fade on the back? And it looks really nice, and then when you leave, the person is in the parking lot, and it looks squiggly because the sun's shining? Do you know why that happens? You didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to tell you guys the hack, the secret right now. If you don't know head shape and you don't account for bone structure, there are shadows in play because our light source, 99% of the time, is above us. The sun is above us, lights are above us. But then when we go to shops, we have these nifty ring lights that hit from the side. The shadows created from your mastoid process bone behind the ear, all that does is cast that shadow. So if you don't cut shorter at the mastoid process bone, then you have a shadow that makes that bat tail wiggle. Aesthetically, it's fine. You did it right. Technically, you could have gone straight across. But you have to account for the head shape and the bone structure for that shadow that can get cast that makes it look wavy. So, taking a horseshoe section, cutting shorter here and shorter here, will eliminate that for you immediately. Little hack that works. So make sure you know your bone structure and you're able to play with it, because that light source really does matter. Alright, one more section right here through the middle with deep point cuts to make sure that I can break up some of this weight. Okay, I want to make sure that this stuff can really start to disperse that color. Okay. I'm going to leave this length because he's still growing it out, but I want to make sure we can break this up. And it'll make a little sense with styling too. Next, I'm going to start with my clipper work. I'm going to use my FX1 Rose Gold New colorway, dropping. We got them here, Jazzy, check them out. The FX1 is really, this has become my bulk workhorse clipper. The reason this is my workhorse clipper is because our computer system makes it cut at 8,600 RPMs. That doesn't change. So if you have wet hair, if you have product, if you have coarse density, it's going to cut right through it. The reason I tell you this is the rate at which the blade goes back and forth allows it to slide through the hair easier, which creates a more comfortable experience for your client. I like this a lot for all of my bulk because it cuts at our fastest rate of speed. I appreciate that, especially because I work on about a 30-minute basis in my shops. I am not a stage educator full-time. I stand and grind. I work behind the chair every day. I love barbering. I love cutting hair. In saying that, this is still a business. So when you show up, you might have just come from the gym. Your hair might be daily. You could have come from a work meeting and you have product. I need something that's going to slide through and not pull. A lot of us back in the day remember when you would sink your clipper in and you hear it going fast. And you sink it into product or wet hair, you go, and it bogged down. The client's head pulls, you're like, ow. That's because the rate of speed isn't as quick. So that motor would actually slow down and get caught up and bogged down. Ours don't do that. We're able to keep that high rate of speed because the computer chip that runs these. So the reason I like these is for that bulk removal purpose. Now, just like when doing scissor cutting, you still have to have sectioning. The point of sectioning and the application of sectioning changes. This now becomes my comb. That clipper guard comb attachment is my section, and it's combing the hair into the blade, just like this would comb the hair into my hands for the scissor to cut. So it's the same idea, it's just different applications with different tools. Does that make sense? No matter what we do, the rules are still in place, and we still use the basic rules. So now, I'm going to take my section at a diagonal, and I'm going to do that by tilting my clipper sideways. And I'm going to work from his recession point to the crux of his ear. The reason I'm going diagonal is to create that motion of going backwards. So really quick, I'm going to take this off. The light's a little dark up here, but if you guys can see, it's going recession point, crux of the ear. So this now is just flowing right off the round of his head. How many of us were taught the C-scoop motion? Were you guys taught that? Okay. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I've been crusading for the last few years against this. No one cuts hair like this, okay? But we teach this for some reason. The idea is rocking. You want to rock with the head shape. When you cut hair, when you sink clippers into hair, how many people put the teeth towards the head? No? Some? Maybe? Yeah? Have you ever found when you put the teeth close to the head, you get a blunt line, like a stoppage? You get a blunt line, right? That's something I learned over a lot of years. When you put the teeth down, you're stopping at a certain point. Even if you try to scoop, this just comes away from the head and stops cutting. So it becomes very blunt. BabyLiss got into the design so heavy where they even took apart the clipper guard. You see that ridge on the back of the clipper guard? It is a higher peaked bevel. The reason we did that is to encourage you to rock round on round. So that way, when you're rocking round on round, you're always working with the head shape and you're giving yourself bailout. Allowing your tools to do the work instead of fighting the head will make your life easier in so many ways. If you just take the teeth and stop, you get this blunt line. If you put the teeth towards yourself a little bit, almost towards the sky, then as you go up the head, the round of the head is just going to allow hair to fall out. When that hair falls out, it naturally bevels. So it gives you a little bit of a ledge, and that ledge is to be used for connections, one guard to the next, or clipper over comb into scissor cutting. That's giving you that bevel and that bailout. So it's a little bit of room you can use to create your blend softness. Now that I prime my canvas, I'm going to come in on the bottom and I'm going to take my skin line. Remember, hard lines make hard times. That's something I've been saying for a little year. If you put in a blunt line, you got to work that line out. I will give you a quick tip. Doesn't matter what company clippers you use, hopefully you're using BabyLiss, but if you don't, this will apply to other brands. If you put a line in with that machine, the only thing that's taking it out is the machine to put it in, okay? So hard lines create hard times. Try not to work in that space. Make your life easier. So for me, I like to come underneath just like I'm fading. I just want to scoop naturally and allow this to take that line off. He has a tattoo right here, so it's hiding the line anyways. But on the other side, you'll see it's a lot softer. They don't have to fight. When you use that scoop, you're still creating the bevel, which is going to allow my zero gap clipper to come in and take that line right out. I am also, how many of us are Cosmo? You have Cosmo? I'm originally Cosmo too. I love it. I'm a dual licensed person. Cosmo's the greatest base for hair. The one thing that I will tell you about Cosmo is they tell you you're not allowed to use a straight razor. That's okay. It is okay. I have stopped using the straight razor for most things. Only thing I really use a straight razor for anymore is a beard liner. It's an abrasive tool, okay? A straight razor is one single razor that pulls hair from the root and clips it in the palm. Using a foil shaver allows you to get a smoother finish, just like a razor fade, just like a barber. So don't get discouraged if somebody says they want a skin fade. You can do it. Just grab the tool. The stick shaver came out less than a year ago with us for BabyLiss. I really have gone to the stick shaver exclusively away from our box shaver because that handle. The handle works just like our other clippers, so it gives me the versatility to flick just like I would with my clipper, so I don't have any of a blunt line when working from skin into hair. I have the same motion that I have with my clipper. It's very familiar. It's your hand dexterity. It's that muscle memory. So this now feels very familiar, and I'm able to just scoop like I would with a clipper. So now I don't have any hard skin line that you just have to sit there and work out with the razor. Next, I'm going to set my next line. I'm going to use our FX Lithium. I really like this because this cuts at a bit slower of a rate. It cuts at about 6,000 RPMs. So it allows you to kind of really texture in those fades. I appreciate this tool, especially when I'm starting my skin lines. If I'm cutting really, really quickly, and I make a fast motion, that line can jump on you real quick. Has anybody ever started with a low fade, worked to a mid fade, ended up with a high fade that had to give away a free fade? Anybody ever done that? I've done it, yeah. Guys, if you're ever sitting there and you think like, oh, this is, no one else ever gone through this? Yeah, we have. Trust, okay? We have all been there. So one of the things I do as a safety net for myself is I really understand my tools and I use them for their purpose. This is one of those things that became a safety net for me. The other thing when I jumped on BabyLiss is we have a locking detent arm, which means that our arm stops and click into place. That was another safety net that I came to use. How many people have gotten into a routine? Do you guys have the same steps you work throughout the haircut? Yeah. That's something that really helps with consistency. You don't need 8 clippers to do a haircut. I work for the brand, I gotta sell it, so I use it, right? But in that, what has happened is I've developed my own style, which I call the plug-and-play style. I use a non-gapped trimmer. Does anybody know what a gapped trimmer is or a non-gapped? Zero gapping, we all know? Quick reference, zero gapping is when you take the mobile cutting blade and you move it closer to the stationary blade and it closes the distance, so it takes it shorter. The increment of hair that's left is very minute. So what I do is I have that non-gap trimmer fresh out of the box. I don't even train, I don't change it, I don't modify it, nothing. That's what I use for my balding. And the reason I do that is because with a gapped clipper, I can come in and take that line out. It erases it. So that way my system is just plug and play. Put that clipper down, pick this clipper up, boom, I've got the line erased because that is my technique. How many people want to get quicker with their haircuts? What you can do is keep cutting hair. The more hair you cut, the more muscle memory you build up, the more retention you can get going so that your moves happen quicker. And you know the basics. Once you know the basics, you can move through. So now I'm going to take my lithium and I'm going to set my next line. Still going diagonal, working from top to bottom. Then I come close. As you can see, I think I'm out of the way. I start to erase that little line, moving up the head. At his recession point, hair grows backwards. Everybody's normally does. When you're at the recession point, you have to go against it going forward in order to get an even cut all the way through. Anybody ever seen at the end of your haircut when you got this really dark spot at that recession point? That's when we don't even out the plane and go against the grain. So that's a little tip to make sure that we always cut everything evenly. Next, I go with my number one. I got away from using a half guard to cut down on my time. I found that I could use corner cutting instead of a half guard, and it allowed me to speed up a lot quicker. That's just something I got into. When I got on this team in 2016, I had already been licensed for like 14 years, something like that. I decided to abandon the way that I had learned how to cut hair. What do you guys think about that? 14 years in, I wanted to kind of start over. The reason is because there's so much evolution and change in our industries. There's so much that comes up. We are always students. Whether you're in school or not, you're always able to learn. And the second that you feel that you've got it figured out, you need to reevaluate because this game will pass you by quick. So at 14 years in, when I got onto BabyLiss, being a traditional barber, I wanted to learn how Patty cut. I wanted to learn how Los cut. I wanted to learn how all these people cut because it was different. And I wasn't going to steal it, but if I adopted it to my traditional style with some of their new school ways, I could cultivate my own style even further. So whenever you're approaching something, realize that everyone has something to offer. It's just a matter of you're open to learning, okay? Now I got my one guard, or my 1.5, and this will be my last guard because I'm now touching into that 2 where I originally started with. Started open, working to close, okay? Open, meaning my blade is at its most elongated form. It's all the way to the front, maintaining the most amount of hair. Working close, getting to the shortest amount of hair. Cool? Makes sense? Now I'm going to come in with my black, and these are also not gapped, and I use them, my FX1s, for flipper over comb. The reason I use non-gap is because I am working with a little bit of a bailout. That lip that was given to me from my bevel, that's going to be my connection into the edge spin. And I'm going to keep a diagonal section, and I'm going to come underneath and pull forward because his hair is moving backward. So as I come underneath and pull forward, it illuminates where his hair needs to get cut. And then I work all the way up until the hair falls out of the comb. It's allowing me to get the natural shape of the head and use the blend to where his head tells me to. So now I'm just using my diagonal section, following it up and allowing the hair to fall out, okay? How many people work with lineups? Do a lot of lineups? I know you do with the spritz. Come on. Here's the thing. Any of my Caucasian people out here? Sorry guys, this one's not for us for the most part. Our hair is too soft. Have you ever put down Caucasian hair, lined it up, and watched it jump? Somebody went from here to and it's brutal. But everyone's front hairline can support being cleaned up. There's a difference between cleaning and lining. I'm going to clean up the front of my haircut here. I'm going to take the diagonal section to the session point where there's no hair here. If you can see, there's no hair on the forehead. I'm going to scoop into where his hair actually starts. And instead of just lining and pulling away, I'm cleaning up the baby hairs just to give it that semblance of cleanliness. I'm taking away that stuff that grows outside of the hairline in order to showcase or frame out any of that blending or fading that we do. Coming around the ear, I start at the front and I stop when my machine hits the crux of the ear. The second it hits that bend, I'm going to stop because that's not going to work with me. Your ear is mobile. You have to bend the ear out of the way in order to work around it. So I bend the ear down, then I come from the back and work to where I previously cut. Keeping that line very crisp and clean, then I come underneath and clean the longer hair. I'm going to take my comb, I'm going to move his hairline back, clean all the longer stuff instead of hard lining. This haircut style doesn't call for a direct hard line. That would look very silly if I took this wispiness in the style blunt cut. So I'm going to use my comb. I'm going to elevate it up and back, clean underneath, and just keep that semblance of cleanliness there. Now I'm going to go to the other side. Repeat my steps in the diagonal manner. Do we have any questions thus far? Anybody? Yeah, I still have like 15 minutes. So I just want to check. I'm going to start here for you guys who couldn't see on this side. Diagonal section, working the recession. See how it just naturally starts to run off the side of the head? If you guys are staring front and center, notice how the teeth are almost elevated off the hairline. That's just naturally working with the round of the head and allowing it to come off and allow the head shape to dictate where my fade is going to lie. And then I come towards recession and cleanly mark it off. The hair that's going backward, kick it forward. Make sense? Now we're do the same thing with my trimmer. Come underneath, using it the exact same manner. Just allowing that bevel to not hard line out the side. If I were to come in, turn it over, and just bang, hit that hard line, now I have to work that out. That's more time that I have to spend on my haircut. That's keeping someone in your chair longer, not allowing turnover to get someone new who's paying. So coming up underneath has allowed me to give a bevel and make my next step that much quicker and easier. Foil shaver with the stick, I still use the flick out. So now he's got a smooth razor finish, like a baby's thumb. You can touch him later, I swear. He's fine with it. You can walk up at any point, just, oh, that's nice. Be good with that. Who knows the difference between taper and fade? Luke's got $100 for whoever has this. Difference between, yeah, hit it. Keeping my diagonal, sorry, I should show you guys this again. Oh, camera, where are you? There it is. Keeping my diagonal and illuminating by pulling forward. Just all I'm doing is connecting the dots from my last clip into my scissor cut hair. That's all we have to do with this one. This light here. Light's a little dicey when you guys get on stage. Okay, there we go. So now we're maintaining this motion. See how it looks like? Okay, go forward. Want to keep that motion forward to maintain that movement backwards. Does anyone know what happens? The rule of hair, what happens? When you pull hair forward, you maintain length backward, right? Does that make sense? So if I were to take his hair, take a section, pull it forward and cut it, I'm maintaining all this length forward to go backward. Does that make sense? We have to apply that even in our short form with our clippers. So I elevate my hair up and move it forward because it's moving backward. Now do the same. Starting where there's no hair, pushing into where his hair grows. Very slight, very easy, very natural. It just gives a little bit of a sharpness to it. See that? Starting here around the ear, stop where it touches, bend the ear down, clean up and forward into that back part. Then maintaining his length here, elevate, scoop underneath, and clean his hairline. Still maintaining his texture. Okay? Is that making sense? Kind of throwing a ton at you quick, but I only get an hour. So, now that his style is starting to be finished, I'm going to grab a little bit of dry clay. I'm going to throw that through. I'm going to break it down with the heat of my hands, emulsifying. The heat of the friction is what's going to allow that hair product to be moldable and pliable to be applied to the style. As I break it down, then I'm going to come through with my fingertips and allow the palms to touch secondary. I'm going to do it all going backwards, as you see. The reason I'm doing it backwards is because that's the way we cut it. We cut it to move backward. Same thing with the back. I'm now going to come underneath, scooping and grabbing, moving this product all the way through and dusting it. I like a clay that's going to be nice and dry. It's going to allow the hair to look styled, but not wet. So I'm just pulling this through myself. And a little tip when you're styling, I'll grab that last bit of product, put it down through the parts where you faded. It will hold all those tiny hairs that were cut. It will also pull out the small hairs that might still be sitting there. And it actually does showcase the blend quite nicely and gives it that fresh fade. All right, and then last, before I finish up my second hair. So now we lightened up this back part, gave it some style. You can put it up, you can put it down. I like the movement now by lightening that weight above the occipital. And then we broke up that color, so it's not this heavy white color blood line, okay? And then finally, I want to make sure that I do clean them off. Hit a little bit of powder with your brush. And it all becomes about service. You don't want your client to leave with hair in their ears, hair on their face, hair on their neck, because you could have the greatest business card in the world. But when my client's out getting gas on a Sunday morning, somebody goes, "That's nice haircut, where'd you get that?" That's the greatest business card you can have. Showcasing your work, setting yourself up to make sure that that client is bringing you more clients, that's the business side that we all work with most. So now as I kind of work through and finish, now as I work through and finish, kind of get that end style, make sure it's nice and cleaned up. Do I have any questions on the haircut? I'll give you my last speech after this. Do you have any questions technically, anybody? No? Good? Yeah, hit me. So what? Let's go further back. And she has a hard time blending behind the ear. That becomes about working with your head shape. One of the easiest ways to work with that is if I'm taking my clipper with my guard and somebody wants it to go further back, I'm going to come to the ear and then I'll allow this to travel off. So as I come through my clipper, I'll run it straight back as if it's on a plane. So that way, anything that falls out of the comb naturally isn't getting cut, and that naturally will fall and give you that level to blend through. Pull your ways. I personally will use two hands on one side if I need to here. So as I'm holding, once I pull this down, then my finger will pin it, just like this, and I can hold my comb and then come through. Same thing on this side, pin it down, and then once I hold, I'm holding my clipper underneath, and then my pinky is holding it down from this side. Cool? Any other last
holding the ear when you're doing super overcomb.
Good? Okay. Go. Okay. So now, as that's all finished up, the second half about everything we do is our personal experience. Our understanding of our client has to choose you to sit in your chair. That becomes your business brand. How many of us work in someone else's shop? You are still a brand no matter what chair you sit in, no matter what shop. Everything is collaborative in our industry. I really want to impress upon this, especially students. When it's time to get into a shop, when it's time to choose your career path, talk to people, understand who you're going to be working with, and understand how their brand will also help your brand and vice versa. You are your own brand inside of every shop. No matter where I am, no matter what stage, country, city, whatever, my brand I can see. I know my haircutting style. But what everybody else can see is this. And this has to present still professional. We're not in suit and ties, guys. We don't have to do certain things. That doesn't mean that we are entitled to clients. The newer generation I hear very often, I got Instagram, so that's fine, but it's not entitled to have people come and sit in your chairs. You still have to go out and get it. when someone walks into your shop, a lot of times somebody like, hey, come on, get that one, right? Hey. The person who is going to be busier than you is the man who walks out. What's up, man? Good to see you. Come on back. And then you lead them to your chair. You lift the cape. You dust it off. You take those extra steps. Your tools are clean. Your presentation is clean. You don't have a smell of cigarettes a week. You talk to them about different things. That's becoming a part of your community. And people really get this twisted now. We are a service-based industry. We are here to serve our communities around us. Don't ever forget that this is a very humble craft. We are the second oldest craft in the world. Barbers and doctors are second only to prostitutes. I know that's funny. I know. But it's true. We're woven into the fabric of this country. Every style is determined by historical value. In the 1920s, everything was scissor cuts and bold outlines. In the 30s, we fell into a deep depression, pre-World War. Everything got much shorter with longer texture, and you wore hats a lot. In the 40s, it was military inspired because of World War II. That's the fabric of this company, so understand that we are part of something much bigger. It's not how your shoes look, it's not how tight you dress. It's about the craft and the service that you can give.
Thank you for sharing that with us.